The very first line of the book, Being Gay is Disgusting, is there are more than 30,000 registered Christian denominations in the USA alone. The author is Edward Falzon, and we're talking during the commercial break, Edward, that, that's one of the motivations in and of itself for this version of the book.
Absolutely. When people of the Christian faith or any faith claim that their holy book is the absolute and only source of morality, that there are 30,000 interpretations of that morality in a single country it illustrates, I would think, to most people that perhaps it's not the absolute source of morality that people think it is.
The book is available through Barnes & Noble, Amazon. You can get it on the website, I believe, beinggaysdisgusting.com. It's available, I assume, through download through Kindle. Phone lines are open. Yep. We'll take your calls. We'll take your questions by email as well, 623-3865, or email rperdue@wvradio.com. We have had some phone lines ringing. Be patient. We will get to you. I promise you, we will take your calls here this morning. Some of the more interesting chapter titles, and then later on we'll have Edward give us some of his favorite passages. From the book of Genesis, there's God decides to kill everyone. God kills everyone. God turns over a new leaf. Chapters 6, 7, and 8. Big war. Abraham kicks butt. Gross misuse of a maidservant. Isaac gets hitched. Jacob snogs the maids. One of my personal favorites. Israel discovers
mine too.
Israel discovers metaphors and dies. Burning animals, a how-to guide from Leviticus, and Israelites breed like rabbits from Exodus. Once again, you certainly have to have a sense of humor to really enjoy this book without just going into a fuming rage if you're a Christian when you look at it.
Well, I have to say that I have a very broad test audience before I actually published the book, including a couple of conservative Christians, Australian, but young Earth creationists, Bible literalists, the same kind of approach to the Bible that I guess 30 or 35% of American adults have. And although philosophically he objects to the notion that I'm, adding humor to the Bible, he has gone through it, and he concedes that I haven't said anything that's not in the Bible. He concedes that I've even shown respect by using capital H for he and him when I refer to God. So even a conservative young Earth creationist, the two that I've actually specifically spoken to, have not been offended by the book. The content of the book. Only the general concept of adding humor, right. They thought, well, maybe you shouldn't do that.
The book has received rave reviews from several publications here in America and globally as well, and you can read some of those online. And once again, I do encourage people to search. Let's go ahead and take our first phone call this morning, 623-3865. Good morning. You're on the Morning Edition. Go ahead, please.
Hey, Reuben, I want to ask you, is this author, is he gay?
No, he is not. I don't want to speak for him, Edward. I don't want to speak.
Yeah, but that's what I was going to say. Maybe I was wondering the second question, but yeah, I never thought, Reuben, that you could stoop yourself this low to even entertain such a book on the air.
Have you read the book? It says all it is the Bible.
Well, it's the Bible according to his eyes and his understanding, which I know that he's not a scholar of religion or anything like that. So it's really just a flat speaking. Also, I think it's just a plot just to make money and that sort of thing. Because even though there should be some truth in it, but a lot of it, it's not going to be true.
Go to the website and find one chapter that you think has been misinterpreted. Some religious scholars have looked at it and have said it's not interpreted incorrectly.
Well, I will do that because I just now, was aware there was even such a book out. And again, Reuben, let the author talk. Is he gay? Are you gay, sir?
I'm having a lot of troubles hearing the caller. I'm sorry, Reuben.
Edward, he wants to know if you were gay, which and once again, clearly he didn't hear the beginning of the show and the reason for the title. But if you choose to answer, you can. He wants to know if you were gay.
I always thought that when it came to the interviews for this book, which they would no doubt have been, that I would leave my sexuality out of it, simply because I don't think it's relevant.
No,
I really don't think it's relevant.
Is he agnostic?
You can't hear. I'm not going to allow that. If he doesn't want to answer that question, he doesn't have to answer that question. It has nothing to do with it, and has nothing to do with the title of the book.
Well, no, I am going to answer it. I just wanted to prefix it by saying that it isn't relevant. It isn't relevant that I'm left-handed either. I'm not gay, by the way, but it isn't relevant. Whether homosexuality is right or wrong is not relevant to my book either. I'm left-handed. My aunt went to a Catholic school and was caned by nuns for being left-handed because she was possessed by Satan. The word sinister is actually Latin for left-handed. This is the effect of fundamentalist Christianity. I'm not gay. I have no issue being gay. It's just not for me.
And once again, it goes back to what I've said. People are going to hear the title of this book, and they're going to jump to conclusions, and they're going to become defensive, and they're going to become offensive in the way they attack yourself and myself for talking about it. And that caller, I know you couldn't hear him very well, he said that he's surprised I would stoop myself to the low level of talking about a book like this. Well, the problem is, all this book is the Bible.
Right. Yeah, how dare you?
Yeah, everything in this book, and that's what we're trying to get across. That's the point of this book. It's not a criticism. It's not a critique. It is a more modern, easier to read with a sense of humor. You have to have a sense of humor and not take things too seriously. Translation of the Bible. And we can go back and once again maybe repeat just briefly the source of the title, Being Gay is Disgusting, not an attack on homosexuality. If anything, in fact, it's perhaps a critique on the attack on homosexuality that we see in this country, because it's something that's not mentioned very often in the Bible. So, and that's a very brief synopsis, a very, very brief synopsis of where the title came from. But you expected, and you know, and that's what we talked about at the beginning of the show, you expect these types of attacks. And people, how often do you encourage, or how often do you experience an audience for the interviews you've done who are actually a little more open-minded and wait patiently to hear what you're talking about rather than just going right for the throat as soon as they hear the title of the book? Do you get that very often, or do most people go right for the jugular?
Well, as it happens, look, firstly, I'm not going to call it an attack. I mean, people react to, quite defensively, and I understand why, because they've been brought up to protect the Bible at all costs. Not read it, mind you, but just protect it. And that's fine, although I encourage them to read it, although it's very boring, so that's why I have my book. People who call in, though, are usually not the patient ones. The patient ones will listen, and they won't feel the need to call in. It's the people who have a strong reaction one way or another that will call in. So it'll either be strong support or it'll be strong opposition. But and that's fine. I'm happy with either kind of call. But I found that there are very few neutral calls, because the neutral people, the patient ones who are just idly curious, will listen and not have to call in themselves.
Well, I know I've got some listeners who I've debated with, who I've talked to, and I've discussed this issue with, who are avid readers of the Bible, but at the same time are open to the discussion and encourage having this type of conversation, although they often disagree with me, and they have good senses of humor. Those are the people I would like to hear from today. Those are the people I want to reach, and that's why I told my audience, be patient, don't jump to a conclusion. And listen to what it is exactly we're talking about. And maybe it will help, Edward, if we take a commercial break and come back and maybe read just a couple of passages, maybe a couple of short chapters or paragraphs to kind of give people an idea of what we mean by a retranslation or a modern-day paraphrasing. How's that sound?
Sure.
Take a quick commercial break, 623-3865, or Perdue at WVRadio.com. We'll come right back on the Morning Edition. Welcome back in. 623-3865 is the phone number. Email rperdue at wvradio.com. And I want to just kind of give you an example, of a very basic example of what we're talking about when it comes to paraphrasing, parodying, and kind of rephrasing the wording of the Bible, making it easier to read. Our guest is Edward Falzon, author of the book, Being Gay is Disgusting, or God Likes the Smell of Burning Fat, a modern-day paraphrasing of an otherwise uninteresting book. Just going to read a small passage cleaned up for American radio from Exodus on page 65, and this is the rephrasing of the story of the plagues. Edward, go right ahead, please.
So this is about the seventh or eighth plague, after God has hardened Pharaoh's heart a couple of times and made him not permit Moses to take the Israelites out to pray and to free the Israelites. So God and Moses are chatting, opening of Exodus 10. So I'm still keeping Pharaoh's heart hardened, God giggled to Moses. See, by putting him and his people through all this horrible stuff, you'll have a great story to tell your kids about how mean and cool I was. So Moses and Aaron visited Pharaoh again. Dude, they began. Nobody could be this stupid. God's going to send in the locusts next. So will you please let us all go and pray for a few days?
And that's just a great example. It's modern conversational terms, a little bit funny, sense of humor in there, and that's the kind of thing we're talking about. But once again, the challenge is there. This challenge has been out there for a while. If someone can find something that you've done wrong, something that you have written incorrectly, something that you have paraphrased incorrectly, other than what the books of the Bible are saying, they can go to the website, and you encourage that. You hope for that to happen, right?
I have a feedback form specifically for that purpose.
The website is beinggayisdisgusting.com. We'll maybe try to find some other sections in here that I can read, some things that might pass along to be interesting. And I had highlighted some chapters here, and maybe I can go to some of those. Let me go to Genesis 1, chapter 6. Let me find that page number as quickly as I possibly can here on air. Probably should have done this during commercial break. That's going to be on page number 6, easy enough to understand. Phone lines are open, by the way, and feel free to call in as I ramble about looking through the book here. God decides to kill everyone. God noticed that everyone was violent and evil, and he regretted having ever made us, so he decided to kill everyone, including the animals, the birds, and the insects, muttering to himself, man, these people are really getting on my nerves. I think I'll kill them in, let's say 120 years from now. It is that type of, you have to have a sense of humor. You cannot be overly sensitive. But the book itself is not an attack, a criticism on any set of morality, on anything the Bible says. It is simply a newer, more humorous, easier to understand way to read and understand the Bible. But one of the things about it, and we talked about this, Edward, is the things that are in here are in no uncertain terms. And sometimes people who aren't familiar with or don't want to admit some of the things in the Bible will find this offensive because you don't sugarcoat anything.
Absolutely. I had a conversation with a Catholic girl who actually is a longtime friend of mine. She's devoutly religious and actually has a master's degree in law from a top-tier university in Australia. So she's bright. She's very good career. And I told her about, we haven't discussed this yet, but I'll bring it up now. In the Numbers, some of the Israelites were converted from Judaism to a polytheistic Canaanite religion. And God didn't like that one little bit. And Moses got 1,000 of troops from each of the 12 tribes of Israel and sent them in and wiped out every man in the Midianite village and took captive all of the women and all of the children. Now, when the commanders brought all these captives back, Moses got angry and said, why did you keep the women alive? They're the ones who converted our men. Kill them and kill the boys and keep the virgin girls for yourselves. And it actually specifies how the virgin girls were to be split up amongst the army commanders, the soldiers, the Levites who were the priests, and Aaron the high priest as well got 32 of his own.